to News 9. It is 9:30 on our Thursday morning. More Metro students are back in the classroom this morning.
And today we are continuing our conversation with Oklahoma City Police Chief Wade Gourley about school security. Here's Lisa Monahan.
Good morning. Chief Gourley back in studio. Another big week for schools across the metro. Students, another round of students make their way back to class. And the important topic of school safety is what we're sticking with again this week, because we've discussed some of the worst case scenarios, but we want to talk about those everyday threat to student safety. What are some of the most common incidents that school resource officers will respond to?
Most anything that's law enforcement related that happens within the school or on the school grounds is related to disturbance type things, kids that get into arguments, maybe some physical fights that occur. Those seem to be the most types of crimes or the most types of events that the SROs or the school resource officers respond to.
And what type of enforcement occurs when they are in these schools and they respond to an incident like this?
It's very important to distinguish that there's a difference between enforcing school rules and enforcing the law. And the SROs are there only to enforce the law, to be mentors to the kids as well. So let's say a kid is walking down the hallway and they don't have a hall pass or something like that. That would be a school rule that the SRO would not get involved in. And so it's made very clear to the SROs that they are only there to handle criminal matters.
And we know that the Oklahoma City Police Department has sort of taken a proactive measure to prepare for even the worst case scenario. We touched on that a little bit last week. But there's even a bigger thing in the works here, and that is working with multiple school districts. Share a little bit about what you guys have been doing.
Sure. Just a few weeks ago, we all met together before school started with representatives. These were security representatives, executive levels at the different schools from all the school districts that are within the city limits of Oklahoma City or that have schools within the city limits of Oklahoma City. This was a very productive meeting. We talked about things that we can do to access cameras, to access security systems, learned about their security systems that were in place, how we gain access to the schools if they're on lockdown. This was a very productive meeting. And we've actually determined that based on this first initial meeting, we're going to have more meetings and do this on a regular basis so that those lines of communication are open. And when our officers need to get into a school to address an emergency or address a threat, that they're able to do so. And more importantly, they know who to contact and who those individuals are that are responsible for security on the campus.
And is this so important because Oklahoma City's jurisdiction stretches into different school districts?
It's very unique. Oklahoma City covers about 621 square miles, and we have schools that are within our city limits that, for example, Moore Public Schools has schools that are within Oklahoma City limits in South Oklahoma City. And so there's quite a few of those districts that are like that, so it makes it a little more unique. We work very closely with Oklahoma City schools. That's where our SROs are assigned. But some of these other schools, they may have their own security. They may have off-duty officers that are working. So it's just important that we're all on the same page and that we all communicate.
Okay, and time now for a viewer question. We had someone ask us about school zones and crosswalks. A lot of kiddos heading back to class even this morning. How are you guys enforcing traffic in those areas right now?
The Oklahoma City Police Department, we actually hire the school crossing guards at a lot of the schools within the Oklahoma City city limits. And so we work with the school districts on those folks, but then also too, our police officers get more proactive in school zones during this time of year. Our motorcycle officers, for example, will come in earlier and they'll work around those school zone time frames to make sure people are slowing down and driving safely. I mean, of course, we don't want to issue a citation, but we also know that that's what gets people's attention, and there's just no excuse for speeding through a school zone. So we do some extra enforcement during that time to make sure that people are obeying the rules and that the kids are safe in those crosswalks and other areas around times that school starts and ends.
Well, we appreciate you being with us and appreciate your efforts. We are out of time for today, but if you have a specific question for the chief, you can email chatwiththechief@griffin.news. We'll ask your questions next week. We'll see you then.